Well, we're back at it again. And thank you for watching Washington Informer News, our digital broadcast on what we call WIN TV. That's Washington Informer News TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. Again, I always like to show you that we're constantly and consistently printing a newspaper. And so, for those of you all who really like to turn these pages and cut things out or what have you, you got it. It's available in over probably, I think we have about 550 newsstands throughout the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. But if you're not in the DMV, or if you just really love digital editions, you can go to www.washingtoninformer.com. You can read the paper there. And, there's also a sign up. So if you'd like for us to send you the digital edition on a weekly basis, because we come out every Thursday, we can do that. All you have to do is just give us your email address and we will send the copy to you. And while you're on the website, there's lots of other news that we cover. And I am just so proud of our mighty little team here of journalists and photographers and the folks that actually try to keep our city informed of primarily the good news coming from the DMV. So please support us, sign up, pick up a copy of the paper, and if you got a couple extra dollars, we want to advertise, I got a solution for that as well. So just reach out to us at news, at washingtoninformer.com. We want you to be sure to check out our Black History Month highlights and how African Americans have historically mistrusted the country's healthcare system. That was our feature this week in the Informer, just some of the issues that we as a Black community who are trying to stay healthy and do the right thing, but still have a mistrust of the healthcare system. As well as we did a feature on the power of the Black doctor. I mean, if it wasn't for Black doctors who we did trust, where would we be right now? So there's so much history there. And if I can do a little shout out, even though it's not scripted, but it's Black History Month, and this organization, the month was established by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He is the father of Black History Week, which later became, actually, it's Negro History Week, that later became Black History Month. And so he also established ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And they are doing some excellent programming. I got to share that with you. Some excellent programming for the month of February. I actually do it. I mean, we all know we celebrate Black History 365 days a year, except where we are being threatened not to talk about Black history. And we need to be a part of the movement to make sure that that does not spread across the country. But Dr. Woodson's organization, ASALH, has some great programming. All you have to do is go to asalh.com, I think it is. I don't know if it's com or org, but Sherry's going to look that up. But go to ASALH. And when I say ASALH, it's A-S as in Sam, A-L-H. ASALH is ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And their website is asalh.com. Or is it org? Was it org, Sherry? Thank you. .org. Makes sense. They are a nonprofit. That's why we need to support them. That's why we need to do what we can to keep the organization going. They're having a big conference coming up, but they've got some excellent programming this month, as well as, I'm giving another shout out to one of our others, which is WHUT, Howard University Television. They need our support, but they're producing some great programming. So we are not lacking in understanding more about our history and our culture, because folks are doing, I think, a wonderful job to produce content and to help us to teach our own where we are, whether we get it in a classroom or not. So having said that, I would just like to say, if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, Be sure to follow us and we will follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's one word, no spaces, Washington Informer TV. We have some great guests. And if you're wondering why Denise is sitting here in a red jacket with red lipstick, which isn't what I normally do. But yeah, I'm doing it, one, because next Tuesday is Valentine's Day. So that's number one. But we're not here to really talk about matters of the heart as far as love is concerned. But of course, if you don't have a heart, right, you won't even have that experience, a healthy heart. So our guest today will be Dr. Yolandra Hancock, a member of the board of directors for the American Heart Association. And I know if you all are having some feelings right there, Dr. Hancock is here to talk to us about what we can do to improve our heart health. She is, again, as I said, she's the American Heart Association Greater Washington region, and I look forward to a conversation with her. And since the 18th century, African Americans established a strong history of inventing products and tools to make life easier for and before after slavery was abolished. And we had inventors like Andrew Jackson Beard, who invented a flour mill, rotary steam engine and plows, Henry Blair, who invented a corn planter, and Solomon Brown, who created the telegraph machine, and Samuel Morse. And of course, there was George Washington Carver, who created so many uses for the peanuts, like soap, mayonnaise, shampoo, glue, and I could go on and name all the items Carter G. Woodson invented. And there were women as well, such as Sarah Breedlove Walker, also known as Madam C.J. Walker, who invented the hot comb and also gave opportunities for thousands of women to make money and to become independent entrepreneurs. Well, today we're going to be bringing two 21st century inventors to WIN TV. We have two-time Emmy Award-winning celebrity makeup artist, Eva Jane Bunkley, who invented the makeup bullet, and Ward 8 resident right here from Washington, D.C., Dennis Carter, who invented the Lean Clean tool, a universal car wash vacuum attachment piece. Sounds like I could use that. We will hear their stories on becoming an inventor. But before we do that and bring on our guests, let's see what Curtis Knowles has for us today.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The U.S. Navy released photos Tuesday of its recovery effort of a suspected Chinese spy balloon, which U.S. fighter jets shot down over the Atlantic Ocean on Saturday. The photos from Sunday show sailors from a Navy explosive disposal team pulling debris from the deflated balloon onto a boat. The debris recovered is being taken to an FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, for analysis as the U.S. looks to understand the capabilities of the balloon. President Biden said over the weekend that he had directed the U.S. military to shoot the balloon down as soon as it was safe to do so, as officials said it posed a risk to civilians and property on the ground. More than 8,000 people have been killed and tens of thousands injured as a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck the countries of Turkey and Syria on Monday. Thousands of buildings collapsed in the two nations, and aid agencies are warning of, quote, catastrophic repercussions in northwest Syria, where millions of vulnerable and displaced people were already relying on humanitarian support. Massive recovery efforts are underway, with the global community offering assistance in search and rescue operations. Meanwhile, agencies have warned that fatalities from the disaster will only climb significantly higher as time goes on. The FBI has captured two people, one, a nationally known neo-Nazi leader, before they could launch an attack on Baltimore's power grid that had the potential to, quote, completely destroy this whole city, said authorities on Monday. The suspects, Brandon Russell and Sarah Clendaniel, were taken into custody last week in Florida and Maryland, respectively. The alleged plot was first flagged in June after an FBI informant claimed to have been contacted by Russell, who wanted to, quote, to attack electrical substations and have provided guidance on how to cause maximum damage, according to the criminal complaint filed against the pair. Federal authorities described the alleged plot as, quote, racially or ethically motivated, as more than 61% of Baltimore's residents are Black.
All right, thank you very much, Curtis. So we're going to move on into our program. I am so pleased to introduce Dr. Yolandra Hancock. But before we go to her, we want to take a look at a short video.
Sometimes stress feels like the only constant, and I know that stress may lead to heart disease and stroke. So today I decided to put my phone down and simply breathe. I'm focusing on what I can control, like turning little moments into me time to help my mind, heart, and body. I'm reclaiming my time. Deep breaths for just 1 minute, a walk with my dog, or calling a friend. This is my time and my health, and moment by moment, I'm owning it.
Wow, Dr. Hancock, are you there? There you are. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I love that advice. Just take a moment and breathe.
Yes,
Just the sound of that sounded, made sounded relaxing. It sounded
absolutely.
really important. So, thank you for joining us today. And we want to find out. Chevy told me, Denise, wear red. Uh, you have red. Why is red so important when it relates to heart health?
So, February is National Heart Health Month. We gather together when the nation spotlights cardiovascular disease, the number one killer of Americans. Right now, in the time that we have together, we lose an American every 34 seconds. So, in the time that we have together, we're going to lose between 6 to 8 people simply based on cardiovascular disease. So, February being the month of love, as you talked about, we come together to unify the millions of people across the country to shed light on what's important in terms of heart health, given that it is our number one killer. What we do at the American Heart Association is provide information and tools to make sure that we're all aware of what our heart disease risks are and what we can do to affect change. We know that just one life lost due to heart disease is one life too many. And so we dedicate this month to making sure that we optimize our heart health.
I know, Dr. Hancock, I hope you and the folks from the American Heart Association will forgive me for not necessarily sticking to the script here.
I'm used to
But
it.
thank you, thank you. Because, I mean, when we talk about heart disease, what is that?
Very good question. So when we talk about cardiovascular disease as a whole, we think about the cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system is from your brain all the way down to your feet because you have blood supply in all those areas. So it includes high blood pressure. It includes high cholesterol that blocks up your blood vessels, your arteries. It includes heart arrhythmias. It includes congenital heart defects, things that little ones have when they're born. So it's all inclusive. What we really focus on, particularly in the month of February, is cardiovascular disease. Those diseases that can affect our body's ability to have blood flow. So strokes related to either plaques developing in the blood vessels or due to high blood pressure. You can have a stroke either because your blood pressure has shot up immediately or over time because you have poorly controlled blood pressure, or it could be because plaques that sometimes hang out or layer in the carotid blood vessels, in the blood vessels within the brain themselves, those little pieces of plaque that are a result of high cholesterol break off and then block the blood flow in the brain. That is also what can result in stroke, but it's also encompassing of high blood pressure. It's encompassing of heart attacks and then the arrhythmias or congestive heart failure that results from either of those health conditions. And so it's sort of this overarching umbrella term, cardiovascular disease, for all of those other diseases that impact your blood delivery system.
And when a person is suffering from heart failure, which I have a colleague actually that's in that situation right
Mhm.
now, and and is waiting for a transplant actually. So, but what is heart failure?
Very good question. So, heart failure, your heart's a pump, right? It's a big muscular pump. And it is designed in a perfect way. I'm a believer, so I believe in God. So, God designed, or Allah, Buddha, whoever you believe in, designed the heart to have such perfect anatomy and physiology, meaning the shape of it is designed to perform in the way that it does, and the electrical impulses flow in the way that they're supposed to. The heart can actually beat on its own, it has its own rhythm. The brain connects to it to regulate that rhythm so that if you exercise, if you get nervous, etc., it can increase blood supply to the body. With heart failure, what happens, particularly for those who have high blood pressure, or if you have something called myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart muscle, the muscles of the heart in hypertension get thicker. And when the muscles of the heart get thicker over time, the heart can't function as well as it was supposed to. So it pumps like this when it normally does, but too much muscle, it pumps at a different way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens over time is the signal that gets passed through the heart to tell it to pump the way that it's supposed to also is abnormal. And so over time, instead of it being this beautifully designed system to pump and empty out in each of the different chambers of the heart, blood sort of sits, and then the whole system gets backed up from your heart all the way down to your feet. Because if the heart gets backed up, the blood going into the lungs for them to get oxygenated gets backed up. The blood returning from the body, all of it gets backed up. I always tell patients it's like a backed up toilet. If you don't get, like, if the toilet that flush is what the heart is doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we don't fix that, it becomes very problematic. And that's why people end up either on medication or eventually needing to have a heart transplant, because the heart can't pump the way that it needs to provide blood supply to the entire body.
And if you can distinguish for me the difference between high blood pressure and low blood pressure, and what
Very good
what
question.
the what the impact of either one of those could be.
Absolutely. So for high blood pressure, we like blood pressure to be at less than 120 over 80. Ideally, anywhere 120 over 80 and less than that. And it's important for people to recognize that, because earlier, like just a couple of years ago, even when I was training, the threshold was like have a blood pressure of less than 140 over 90. That was what people stuck with, as long as it's less than that. But studies have shown, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association, the research that they have really pushed forward, we now understand that even in the 130s, the body does not do well. The heart does not do well with such an elevated blood pressure. And so the goal for all of us, particularly us adults, needs to be at 120 over 80 or less. So that's high blood pressure. And high blood pressure over time can impact almost every system of the body. Your brain, because your brain was designed to only have a certain level of blood flow. You can actually have, as we talked about before, you can have strokes, you can have aneurysms as a result of elevated blood pressure. Same thing with your rest of your body system. Your kidneys can be impacted by high blood pressure as well, because over time the blood vessels start to constrict. You're not getting as much blood supply, and it makes the kidneys work much harder. Low blood pressure is usually anywhere between like 80 over 50, anything lower than that. So folks who are sitting in like the 7, especially as adults, because for children it's completely different. For children, we have to use the NHLBI blood pressure charts, and it's based on their age, their weight, and their height. But for grown-ups, it's a pretty standard threshold. For individuals who deal with low blood pressure, they can get dizzy, usually upon standing. A lot of times it has more to do with electrolyte imbalance than it has to do with anything else. There are a couple of genetic conditions that can cause routine lowered blood pressure. The most important thing is just to be aware of how important heart disease is for all of us collectively, and knowing how to navigate through how to protect your heart and how to maintain, if you have developed cardiovascular disease, what do you do to rectify it? What do you do to help manage it yourself? And how do you partner with your healthcare provider? And that's where the American Heart Association comes into play. We provide a lot of resources to help people navigate through that, especially in the month of February.
And so, we talk about those who probably are most impacted by heart disease. I know you look at men, you look at women, you look at African Americans or people of color. Some of us are more predisposed
Right.
To heart disease than others. And can you talk about that a little bit? Why? And
Absolutely.
because then we're going to figure out how we overcome this and get our hearts back in shape.
Right. That's the big issue, right? Is to, like, we know that we hear stats often,
Right.
but it's what do we do with them, right?
Yeah.
I think part of it is just awareness. It's surprising for a lot of people to understand that women are as at risk for heart disease as men are. Oftentimes we think about heart disease, particularly heart attacks, as a man's disease, when in actuality women suffer from heart disease and heart attacks equally as much as men. One in three women has
Wow.
cardiovascular disease. And that number is even higher for Black and Hispanic women. 1 in 2 Black or Hispanic women are dealing with cardiovascular disease. Women are dying from heart disease more than all cancers combined. And a lot of our attention is usually shifted to things like breast cancer. And no knock to breast cancer. It's very important that we pay attention to our tatas, and they get their attention in October, right? We have Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but in the month of February and every month, women need to understand that we are as much risk for heart disease and heart attacks as men are, but often it's discounted. We have different symptoms than men do. Sometimes when we present with heart attacks, we may have upper belly pain, we may have indigestion, or what seems to be indigestion, we may have back pain. And so we as women may discount it because it doesn't fit the textbook definition of heart attack symptoms. And when we finally do go to the doctor, it's usually dismissed. It's like, oh, we'll take an acid, or you're stressed, or whatever the case may be. And we're not often evaluated in the way that men are. And that has to change. But I think the most important thing is to understand that we are all at risk. And it's not about age. There are women in their 20s, at least 45% of women in their 20s and older have at least one symptom of cardiovascular disease. And when we talk about Black and brown women particularly, the stats are even worse. As I mentioned before, 1 in 2 of us has cardiovascular disease.
Wow.
And, part of the issue is, one, some of the behavioral choices, right? And a lot of time in the medical community, it's like, oh, well, Black and brown women, they don't make the right eating choices. They don't exercise as often. They smoke more. It's not that simple, right? There are behavioral choices associated with risk of cardiovascular disease, but we also have to pay attention to family history. I know in my family, my great-grandmother died of a massive heart attack. My grandmother has thankfully survived 3 heart attacks, and my mother had a mini stroke back in 2019. So I'm fully aware of my risk. The question is, what do I do about it?
Right.
The third is social determinants. It's where we as Black and brown women are born, grow, live, learn, play, pray, and age. That also increases our risk. If I live in an environment where my only options to eat are very unhealthy. We talk about food deserts, but we also have to talk about food swamps. If my only options, unless I want to take 2 buses to get there, are fast food establishments and corner stores, that's what's going to influence my eating choice. If the park or recreational center where I live is not safe, or is at least perceived as not to be safe, or doesn't have equitable equipment and classes, then I'm not going to do those same things, right? We have to think about all of those things. The stress of being Black in this country.
Yeah.
We just saw
it's
yet
real.
another Black man
That's right.
brutalized and murdered by the police. We may not have known him, but we have brothers, we have sons, we have nephews. That makes it just that much heavier for us. And that
Right.
affects our stress levels. It affects how we are experiencing life in this country. And all of those influence our risk. And then when we think about age, as I mentioned before,
So
a
that's
lot
where
of
I
young
was going to go.
Yeah,
That
a
was
lot
my
of
next question.
a lot of young, like, we know as we get older, sis is about to hit 50 this year. We know
Congratulations.
age is a risk factor.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that simply because you are young, you're not at risk for cardiovascular disease. Studies show that babies, our littlest, as early as the age of 2, can start to develop plaques in their blood vessels, in their
Wow.
arteries.
Mhm.
2 years old.
Because of what? What causes that?
Some of it has to do with family history,
Okay.
but some of it also has to do with dietary habits,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
when we don't really think through how food may impact the littlest of us,
Mhm.
like who would think that if I give my child a fast food establishment's cheeseburger and French fry meal several times a
A
week,
week,
that that's
right?
going to impact their heart health?
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely will.
And the
Fat is fat.
snacks and the candy and all that stuff, we
Exactly.
kind of
It's
give them
it's
to
all
just
of that.
appease them. Yeah.
It's all of that. And so we
Mhm.
have to really think through what does that look like for our children?
Mhm.
And then for the generations behind us. We know that Gen Z and millennials, God bless their souls, many of them do not see, particularly in as women, they don't see heart disease as a health issue for them. Yet we see that in their age groups, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit later, mental health has been such a significant issue for Gen Z and
Yes.
for millennials, and that directly impacts their heart health. So no matter whether you're 20 or close to 50, heart health is part of what you have to focus on. We have to be able to reverse these numbers because we can't accept 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 women having heart disease.
Right. And or anybody,
Anybody,
really
absolutely.
when we know that there's certain things that we could do, which we'll talk about, but certain things that we can do that would help to, even if I guess at one point you may have suffered from some condition related to your heart, and then you recognize you change diet, you do whatever those steps are, and Doc, you can tell us what those are. And then I want you to also talk about, the symposium that's coming up, because we certainly do want to make sure that folks can get a chance to hear you and others that can help to save our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have to first shout out Go Red for Women.org because we released this amazing Red Chair series that you and I talked about. I believe it was either late last year or early this year.
Right.
So a 4-part series that's fantastic, specifically addressing women's heart health. In terms of taking action, the first thing is to be aware, to know that we are at high risk for heart disease as women particularly, but for all of us collectively, as you just mentioned. It's also to take action, to know your numbers. I'm talking knowing family history. If you haven't talked to your daddy side of the family in a long time, now's the time to put in a call to know what does heart health look like on either side of the family so that you're aware. The second is to know your numbers. We talked about blood pressure, but I'm talking cholesterol and have them break it down. LDL, HDL, triglycerides, all of that. Know your blood pressure and know the trend. Pay attention over time and know your body. Don't ignore it. We, particularly as Black women, do a really good job of putting our capes on and quote unquote pushing past, but we can't ignore when our body whispers because it will yell. Paying attention to your hemoglobin A1C. We don't often talk about the link between blood sugar and the risk for cardiovascular disease, but they're tightly linked. Elevated blood sugar will facilitate increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The second thing is to advocate, to make sure that you use your voice in terms of addressing disparities particularly. And I always say your vote is your voice. Voting to make sure that people are all about equity so that we're addressing some of the disparities that we talked about earlier. And then be the beat. That is our theme at the American Heart Association this year for Heart Health Month. Be the beat. Become a lifesaver. We saw what happened with Damar Hamlin on the field. That is a very rare occurrence. What happens more often is people experiencing cardiac arrest because of a heart attack. And I want each of us to be prepared to have at least one person in the family know hands-only CPR.
Oh, yeah.
There are ways to get involved, to learn. If you go to the American Heart Association, we can link you up with resources to be able to get trained so that each of us can serve in the capacity to save a life.
I thought you were going to say, because, and pardon me if this is not appropriate, but I thought you were going to say beat your feet, meaning get out there and walk, run, do something. Where
Listen, be the beat and beat your feet. I'll take them all. I will take them all. Be the beat and beat your feet to hit the pavement, because even at your house, even if where you live is unsafe, you can get on and just walk in place. Put on some praise music, get your hallelujah praise dance on, whatever it is that it takes to get your heart rate up. That's what we want you to do. And then lastly, what I want you to do
is it's a muscle. It's a muscle, and you need to exercise it.
You have to work the muscle.
Right.
If you don't work the muscle, the muscle's not going to work when you want it to.
Exactly.
So we have to keep that muscle nice and working very, very well. And then the last thing is to join me on February 22nd at 1 p.m. We are doing this amazing symposium online. So push your lunch break back to 1 p.m. so that you can join me. We're going to be talking about mental health and heart health, particularly when it comes to women's health. For a lot of us as women, we take on a lot. We don't often prioritize ourselves, and it's costing us our heart health. And so I want everyone to come and join us. If you don't have to be a woman to join. I want you to join no matter your gender identification. I want you to join us so that we can talk about heart health and the connection to mental health so that we can further optimize our health as we wrap up Heart Health Month.
It looks like one of your speakers, and I couldn't read the name, but it looked like her picture. The picture is kind of small on the right. Is it Avis?
Yes. So it's Miss Tyler. Yes. One of our survivor, our cardiac event survivor.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, anyway, it looks like you got a great line up there, but most importantly, you're going to be there. So I know that it's going to be a great, engaging conversation. And hopefully, people will leave out of there inspired and and ready to do what they need to do to have a healthy heart. How often should you check your blood pressure, whether it's bad or not? How often should you check your
Very
heart
good
health?
question. So, if you have a history of high blood pressure, my recommendation is as you're trying to navigate its control, for instance, if you just started on medication, or if your doctor has tweaked your medication because they have not yet been able to control it, I would say to check your blood pressure on a daily basis to see what the trend is. Don't wait till you get to the doctor's office because we know that white coat hypertension is a thing. There have been pediatric patients who I've seen when they come in, their blood pressure is super high, but then I'll have the family buy a blood pressure cuff that's appropriate for that child's size and then recognize it had nothing to do with them having high blood pressure and everything to do with them being afraid that they were going to get shots. So once your blood pressure is regulated, you've been able to maximize it's that less than that 120 over 80 or less, then you know you've reached that sweet spot. You don't have to necessarily measure it every single day. For those of us who do not have high blood pressure, what I would say is checking with your doctor when you go in for your annual checkup. And then, especially as we get older, it wouldn't hurt to have a blood pressure cuff at home and check it every once in a while, especially in those moments where you're feeling like your stress level, like your shoulders are way up to here and you know you're dealing with a lot of stress. Check your blood pressure. And when you do, and that number is high, do what the video says. 90 seconds of deep breathing exercises have actually shown to bring cortisol levels, that stress hormone, down and to bring your blood pressure down. When you know, you know. So when you know your blood pressure, you know what you need to do.
Dr. Hancock, I could talk to you all day because you break it down, you make it so simple, and you're very inspiring in your message. So I've got one last question for you, and then I will let you go. But a lot of people are investing in these watches, right? What's your take on that? Watches that can check your heart rate or what have you. You got any thoughts about those? Are they helpful, or do you think the cuff is just a better idea?
It's an excellent question. Certainly, as a general rule of thumb, to monitor, it's good, but you have to think through. We recognized recently that something like a pulse oximeter, which measures oxygen level, does not work as well for melanated skin. So the first question is, depending on the deposition of melanin, how well do these watches actually monitor heart rate and blood pressure? It certainly provides some information for us from a clinical standpoint. But the best thing to do is go old school. We know based on data that wrist blood pressure cuffs do not work as well as our brachial blood pressure cuffs. So I would imagine the same thing is going to be the case for the watches. But the more information, the better. I certainly don't want anybody to throw away their watches, but just know that if you're dealing with any blood pressure issues, the best thing to do is to actually use one of those old school blood pressure cuffs. And you can use the automated one. I don't expect people in there pumping the button, trying to squeeze. You don't have to do that anymore. But certainly if there are any concerns either about low or high blood pressure, make sure that you have a blood pressure cuff in your house.
Well, you have informed me of so much today. I really appreciate that. And who knew melanated skin, was what's the term? What would be the best way? More, explain that to me again.
So what happens for a lot of these technologies, it's either an infrared technology that helps to measure. It does not necessarily penetrate through and measure in terms of refraction or the bounce back with melanated skin as it does with less melanated skin.
Interesting.
It's simply because we're more magical.
Yes. On that positive note, Dr. Hancock, I'm going to let you go. Looking forward to the symposium. And it's going to be a great event. I hope people will actually sign up and go and attend. Is it? I don't remember you telling me whether or not there's a cost. Is it?
No,
free?
it is. It is free 99.
Okay.
So I hope that all of your viewers tune in on the 22nd at 1 p.m. You will not be sorry to share your lunch hour with me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Look forward to having you back, particularly when the season changes and people start getting outside. We want to make sure that they're exercising properly, that they're not causing more problems where there aren't any. So, Dr. Hancock, thank you. I appreciate this.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a good one. Sherry, I didn't know that. Isn't that interesting? I mean, they never make things. They make these things. They used to make clothes, and clothes didn't fit Black women the way they fit other women because they weren't using us as the models for their clothes, right? Shoes didn't fit the right way. And now we're finding these devices don't work either because if you have more melanated skin, it doesn't I tell you, that's why we need Black History Month. Thank you, Dr. Hancock. We're going to now move to Eva Jane Bunkley. We're going to check out her video first, and then we'll talk to her in just a second.
Hi, I'm Eva Jane, the makeup artist who created the Makeup Bullet high-def cosmetic finger sponge. As you can see, it fits snugly on a finger and leaves the most flawless finish for your creams, your powders, your concealers, your foundations, blushes. So I'm going to show you just how easy the Makeup Bullet is to use.
I love it. I love it. Eva Jane, how are you?
I am awesome. Hello, Denise. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a treat, and then let folks know that you are not in our backyard. You're actually a few hundred, maybe 1,000 miles away from here, right?
Yes, I'm actually on the road. I am a baseball and golf mom. So I am at a baseball field about to watch Tuskegee versus Stillman in a little bit. But
Fantastic.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to miss this.
Wishing your son much success in this game. This will be wonderful. But in the meantime, in addition to being an independent film producer, I guess, and an inventor with this bullet. So, let's talk about how the evolution of this product, how it came to your mind, and then how it became real.
Well, I have worked as a professional makeup artist. This will actually be year 30 for me in September.
Wow.
Since 1993, I've been working. I moved to Atlanta, started my makeup career in 2001 and 2002. That's when I earned my Emmy Awards.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, but we'll
primarily
get back to that
news.
in a second.
And when I was on set, I kind of spread my everything out. And with news, it's very fast paced and there's no grace. So I had a lady in my chair and I was trying to get her ready and they needed her like right then because it was live. And I started to panic because I was like, oh my goodness, I can't find my makeup sponge. And the thought came to me that if your sponge was on your finger, that'd be one less thing you were looking for. And I was like, oh my goodness, is that a thing? So I kind of put a pin in that idea, got the woman to set, and then started to walk out the process of when you have a brilliant idea and then when you shoot yourself down, because that's exactly what I did. All of the doubts started to come in, and it took me almost 10 years to build up my courage to create this wonderful little tool right here.
And I guess you did a little research. Was there nothing like that already on the market, or?
No, there was nothing like it out there, but because of that, it almost seemed too high of a concept for little old me to do. I said to patent something, to create something, to manufacture something. I was thinking, that would cost a lot of money. I don't know where to start. I don't know who would make it for, there was just all of that self-doubt that, creeps in, all of those negative. And then I kind of was looking for outside validation. I asked a friend of mine who'd been in the industry maybe 10 years longer than me. She was a great artist. And, I was like, hey, can I talk to you about this idea? I think I'd like to do this. And she was just kind of lukewarm about it. Just like, I don't know if I like that. And I was like, oh, if she doesn't think it's amazing, then maybe it's not amazing. And being young, I was in my late 20s at the time. I just was kind of like, but it wouldn't leave me alone. Yeah. So I kept, it was in the back of my mind. And one day I was on a makeup panel and there was a woman who also manufactured, she manufactured tools, brushes she worked for a company and they had their own factory and everything. And I was like, can I talk to you after this meeting? I've had this idea for a long time. And she said, Eva, and I had her sign the NDA. I had everybody sign NDAs. Like, that's a big thing when you're like, want to invent something.
Which
Those
is a
non-disclosures.
Right.
Yes. So she said, Eva, I've been to beauty shows all over the world and I've never seen anything like this. You need to do this like yesterday. You could be sitting on a gold mine. This is great. So I started the process of getting a prototype made, and I gave them out to some of my friends in the industry, including my first friend. And when she got it, she said, oh my goodness, I love this. She was like, how can I help? So I looked at that, like it taught me a lot of lessons. For one, it's like when God has something that he's just kind of birthed within you, it's not necessarily everybody can't see it. But yet, if you can have the courage to kind of walk it out and create it, then people will catch the vision. Some people have to see, touch, feel, in order for the reality to come. So it'll be 10 years. The Makeup Bullet turns 10 years old this year.
Oh,
and it's been all around the world. I've had distribution in so many different countries that I will never visit. pretty sure. But it's been a journey. When you can see a woman across the world in Saudi Arabia or in South Africa using your product and enjoying it, it gives me so much fulfillment.
I know that's a thrill. When it comes to it, so I'm not the real makeup person, although I try, and I learned somewhere because I had a makeup artist who was using a sponge, right? Not your sponge. Mm-hmm. I bet you she's using it now, whoever she might be, but I bet you she's using it now. But I mean, just as a makeup artist, what is the utility? Why are a sponge better in the application of makeup? And how did the bullet really, impact that or influence that?
Yeah. So not every sponge is amazing.
Okay.
Because they're all made of different materials. So I had to vet a lot of different raw materials. So I had manufacturers I had to get two manufacturers, one who made, and that was like the learning process for me. The ones, just because they made foam doesn't mean that they were going to make it into the shape I needed. So I needed to get a raw material foam manufacturer. Then I needed to find a converter who would convert that foam into the shape I wanted. So I had to find two companies to create what I needed. So I had all these people send me foam, and you feel it and you're like, no, that's too rough on the skin. Or that pore structure is too tight, too closed. It won't accept the product and then blend it out. I had a particular type of foam that I loved. It had to be very pliable, very malleable. And then the functionality of being able to just put it on one finger, usually I'll put it either on my ring finger or my middle finger, because then I can use my dominant fingers to hold something else. So then I can multitask. It can stay here and I'm not bothered by it. It just becomes a part of me. I had one makeup artist send a picture. She said, look at this, Eva. I didn't even realize one of the bulbs went out in my vanity, and I changed it and I still had the makeup bullet on and didn't even realize it. So it's one of those things where it just becomes an appendage.
Yeah.
And it's a very natural part of you. So your finger, you turn it into that blender, because a good sponge, and the thing about the makeup bullet is you don't wet it. You don't have to wet it.
Okay.
The pores are already open and ready to receive and deposit material, and it's not going to eat up a lot of your product. And a lot of people have that concern, like, well, it's just going to absorb all the product. No, I made it so you don't have to do that. You pop it on, it's ready to go. You don't have to wet it. If you want to, you can just lightly mist it, but don't wet the whole thing, because then it blows up and the whole functionality is gone, because it's supposed to fit snug and you not think about it.
I see.
But sponges are great. But I've met artists who's just like, oh, I can't use a sponge. I have to use brushes for everything. And it's one of those things, like there's cake people, there's pie people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you have to with the bullet? Is it like a one-time use? Or can you wash it? And tell us a little bit about
just
that.
Like, say, the little sponge round that you get in your compact, and you use that until you're done. Usually people don't wash those, but you can wash it. There's directions in there how to care for it. You don't want to scrub at it too much because it is a piece of foam,
Right.
and as they become wet, they do lose some of their tensile strength. So you definitely want to be able to be gentle with it. Sometimes I'll do the lazy way. I'll put it in a bowl of warm water with some Dawn dish detergent in it, and I'll just kind of let it go through, let it sit, and then rinse it out, and then let it air dry. So it's a very versatile tool. It's hypoallergenic. There's no latex. It's made 100% in the United States. I wanted to source all of my manufacturing here, so I would have that control, be able to visit, that type of thing. Quality. That quality was very, very important to me. So it was very intentional. I was very intentional.
I love the commercial that I call it a commercial that we use. And so how has your marketing experience been? Has that been a challenge or what? How do you market the product?
It is challenging for me just because I do not crave being in front of the camera. I kind of like, oh, if I don't have to go on. But and even when I first started to advertise, I tried to make it more multicultural and show all kind of women and kind of stay behind the scenes. But then I look at my Gen Z beauty, all of the beauty entrepreneurs, and I admire them so much because they're just like all about it. Like, look what I can do. So I'm like at 50 plus, I'm kind of like, whoa, I got to get out here and represent. But I'm learning as I go. I'm having fun with it, and I'm blending a lot of my different passions all together to just create this life of entrepreneurship for me.
I am so excited for you, and that you were willing to come on our little show to share your product, but your whole experience and rolling that out. I'm surprised we didn't see you on what's that show?
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I don't have to mention
I know what you're gonna say.
Because I know,
but you know what?
I know they would have taken that.
Full circle moment. I auditioned early on, but then I was just chosen to share a stage with Damon's John at Black Entrepreneurs Day this past fall at the Apollo. And it was wonderful being able to share with him the story of the Makeup Bullet, how it came to be, and the audience that was there, and all of those for Black Entrepreneurs Day.
Right.
So that was,
Did you have to find investors? Or were you able to do that on your own?
Purposely, I did an organic, self-funded bootstrap growth model. I did not want to go to outside funding and having somebody tapping on my shoulder all the time. I couldn't take that stress.
Yeah. So we talked about you, or we introduced you, for Black History Month as an inventor.
Yes.
We know you're an Emmy Award winner. We know you're a makeup artist, but do you use inventor on your bio or anything? I created, I invented. Do you consider yourself an inventor?
Yes, definitely. I've been to trade shows and I'll market that. Meet a Black female inventor. And I didn't really realize the power or impact of it. And I had a girlfriend, we were on set one time. She said, Eva, do you know you're the only person I know with a patent? And I'm like, really? Like, okay, like, well, maybe it is a bit of a, something. But I'm like, I want to say anybody can do it.
Yes.
Anybody can do it.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to end on that note because I want people to be encouraged and inspired.
Definitely.
Shelly's reminding me that we didn't talk about your book. Tell us about your book. I don't want you to go before we do that. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Oh, so nice. Okay.
It's on my website. It's called Innovative Beauty: Keys to an Inventor's Success. And if you are thinking about a product journey and you don't know where to start, this is my exact story of how I created the Makeup Bullet. That's
wonderful.
Step by step.
That's smart. That's really smart that you sort of documented the process, and not only to tell your story, but to share the experience with others. And like you just did a few minutes ago, you're really inspiring people to go on out there and do it. Do the daggone thing. Get your product out there. Get your patent.
Definitely.
Thank you, Eva Jane. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Have a wonderful day, and wishing your son the best.
Yes. Blessings to you all. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. We're not done yet because, we have an inventor right here in our own backyard, Dennis Carter. And I want him to come on and talk about a product that he created called the Lean Clean Tool. Hope he's here. Is he here with us? Oh no, we're going to see his video too. This is great. Keep watching. Wow, Dennis, you have done it as well. That is fantastic. How are you? You want to unmute yourself? Because we want to hear your story as well. Okay, there you
I'm
go.
great. Thank you for having me, Denise.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think I was supposed to have been a dentist, but anyway. Welcome to Win TV. So, I mean, let's talk about. I want to hear about your journey. From
Okay.
well, one, you're from DC, so and from the. I guess you're from DC, right? No.
Well, I was born in Oakland, California, but I've been out here for a while, so
Okay.
yeah, I've been out here. But first, I want to say thank you to the Washington Informer for having me, and Eva with the makeup bullet. That was amazing, as well as Dr. Yolanda Hancock. Thank you for the great information. She shared with everyone. So
Yeah, and I just watching that video and seeing a product that everybody can use,
yeah.
the Lean Clean tool. Let's talk about how you came up with that.
All right. So I created the Lean Clean tool just by seeing food and debris in the car crevices that I noticed in the summertime would start to cook and create like certain sour smells in the vehicle,
Hmm.
as it got hot. So I created the Lean Clean tool as an attachment. Here it is right here. Um, it fits any public vacuum in the world, and it gets the crevices of your car or any vehicle. And it fits any vacuum nozzle. It just hooks right in, and
Oh,
you
that's
get it.
simple. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty simple. It's a great idea.
yeah. So, what was your process like? To get a patent. I'm assuming you have a patent as well, and had to do some testing and what have you. What was that all? What was that like?
Yes, ma'am. I got two utility patents. It was it was it was a little work. I mean, I had to hire a lawyer in order to help me with the patent language, and it's you got to kind of know the lingo in order to get the patent. So you might have to hire somebody to help you out, just like anything else.
Hmm.
But I was able to get two utility patents for this product. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
So where can folks get it?
Right now, you can order it on Amazon.
Okay. All
It's on
right.
Amazon, or you can buy it wholesale from the manufacturer.
One of the things that people, I guess in your shoes, I've never invented anything, so I don't know the process, but pricing is probably one of the things that you have to kind of figure out. And what is that process like of determining what it's like on the what would you charge on the market?
Well, I got with my team, we kind of put it together like the costs that we spend on the project versus like the cost of our advertising and everything else. And we had to figure out a reasonable price, that people will pay for something like this, as well
Hmm.
as profitable and, keep it funded and to be able to create more. So,
And what about marketing the product? How are you doing that? I mean,
so
I'm
marketing,
glad you're on with us because this is part of it. But yeah, how else are
yeah,
you
thanks for
marketing?
having me on. I'm marketing
Yeah,
here. We're on
that's right.
Facebook, all the social media platforms. Right now, we're mainly marketing on Amazon, but we have campaigns on all the social media websites. We target different cities, different states. Like right now, we're doing a campaign all over the country, but mainly we're trying to hit the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Because Arizona or Phoenix, Glendale, you know, it's warm out there still, so they're still washing cars and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's another way we market is last week here was a car wash show in Washington D.C. So we marketed all around the car wash show, and you know, we market in different areas in different ways.
I never knew there was a car wash show. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
I
was
mean,
right
I
at the
see.
convention center for 2 weeks.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
so is that part of the auto show?
Oh, the auto show. I'm sorry, the car show, the auto show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand why you would call it the car wash show because
No,
those
there is a car
beautiful.
wash show I go to a couple of times a year, so I gotta
Really?
miss. Yeah, there's
No,
different trade
no.
shows. Yeah.
Yeah. So the lean clean. How did you come up with the name? Uh,
Well, I came up with the name because it's a cleaning tool,
yeah.
as you can see, and it's lean. You know, I made it lean to be able to fit in between all the seats and underneath the seats
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
crevices in the vehicle. So that's how it came about, the lean clean tool, and
So how's it
that's
going? How is business? Is it are your expectations being met of I mean, this is your first invention. I don't know if you have
yes.
any others coming down the pike.
Well, I might have some later, but I mean, it's going. It's a lot of work, you know, because like Eva, this is a new concept. So
Hmm.
our what we had to go through was kind of similar to her story. It's a new concept. You
Okay.
kind of have to work twice as hard to get it out to the market because like nobody's looking for a vacuum attachment for the public vacuum. But once they
Right.
know about
Right.
it, they will be looking for it. So we
Right.
have to market off of like other car vacuums. Um, but yeah, it's going
So
good. It's a lot of work, but it's going well. It's just starting to gain traction after a couple of years of marketing and stuff. So
okay, because she
yeah.
says her product's 10 years old. Does yours have a how long have
uh,
you this been on the
mine's
market?
about 5 years old. I've been working on it for about 5 years.
Okay.
I've had the patents for about 3 years. So,
Right. Right. And
but you
and the
know, it takes
last thing.
like yes,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say usually they say it usually takes like 5 to 10 years to start a business. So you know, we're right up in there.
I got you. I mean, it's the last question because of time, but
Yes, ma'am.
since you put the product out there, have you had to, adjust it in any way because of, feedback from customers that said, "I wish you did this way or that way"?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. So the first Lean Clean only fit the public vacuums in America or North America.
Mm,
Then people wanted them to fit all the public vacuums. So we actually designed it to fit all the public vacuums or self-service vacuums in the world. So we did have another model, but it wasn't as compatible as this one. So you can go anywhere in the world with this, and it fits any vacuum. And I mean self-service vacuum, like the car wash or the gas station. You
right.
know, the ones that are out there with the hose. And you just hook it up to the nozzle and clean out your car. You know, and this is the only one. This is the first and only vacuum attachment for the self-service vacuum.
Wow. I
Yes,
am that sounds great. Sounds like a useful tool, and you listen to your customers, so that's a good thing. You're getting feedback, so you make the
oh yes,
adjustments.
oh yes,
Yeah.
definitely,
Well, Dennis, I
definitely.
want to thank you so much for being with us and sharing this Black History moment because people need to know that we do create, as
Yes, we
we're
do,
not just consumers, we're also inventors and creators, and you are a
definitely.
prime example of that. So thanks a
Thank
lot for being with us. And you can get the Lean Clean tool on Amazon and where else?
Amazon Arcadian Services website, which you can see the tool in action,
Hmm.
and it will be everywhere pretty soon. It'll probably be in retail soon, so you're seeing it before it comes out.
All
So
right, right here. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate you. Sherry, you cut him off so quickly. We're going to end now. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. She just cut you right off. I was trying to figure out what was
yeah,
going on there. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being with us. And
thank
I
you.
will see the Lean Clean tool soon and hopefully get a chance to meet you in person sometime soon as well.
Sounds good. I appreciate you all for having me on. Thank you
All
for the
righty.
opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a great day. So this brings us to an end of another segment of Win TV, but we're not over because we have a Black History moment that we want to share with you from our reporter Curtis Knowles. But after that, I want you to have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week with more Black History. This is Denise Rolark saying so long.
Josephine Baker, born Frida Josephine McDonald, was a world-renowned performer. Hailing from St. Louis, Missouri, Baker performed throughout the Midwest, singing and dancing. Her unique style eventually brought her to New York as she performed in vaudeville shows, and eventually Paris, where she spent a majority of her career. During World War II, Baker acted as a spy for the Allies, oftentimes hiding information transcribed on music sheets. Baker eventually returned to the U.S., where she continued to fight against racism, oftentimes refusing to perform for segregated crowds. She adopted over 13 children from various countries, which she dubbed the Rainbow Family Tribe. Baker was recognized by the NAACP, and she was one of the few women who spoke at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Brooklyn-born and DMV raised Allison McKithen now serves as the executive director of the World Trade Center, Washington, D.C., and the first Black woman to hold the post. As the barrier-breaking leader and VP of International Programs at Trade Center Management Associates and the exclusive manager of the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center, McKithen at 63 directs the first and only federal building dedicated to both public and private use. From events to programming, meetings, and initiatives, McKithen looks forward to each time she gets to work with the international business community. One of her launch programs, known as Winter National, quote, brought together over 60 embassies under one roof to showcase their art and culture, according to McKithen.